There were once two boys by the names of William and Alex. They were both right little terrors that ran around driving each other and their parents crazy. But deep down, they loved each other more than anything in the whole wide world. They were both amazing in school, with lots of friends and no interest in girls, because as everyone knows, girls are annoying. This is the story of the mysterious events that happened to them at their house at Christmas, and what they discovered under the wallpaper of the spare room, which caused them to raise their eyebrows in amazement. They loved their little house. From the kitchen windows, they'd imagined they could see only fields all the way to the horizon, and that it was so quiet that you can hear water dripping off a leaf from right at the end of the garden. Sometimes, when they lay in bed, they could hear a train far away in the distance that always filled them with a big sighing feeling like sadness, only nice. It's good in their spare room, really big, with a wardrobe that rattles its hangers when you walk past it, and huge yellow hot air balloons on the wallpaper. When they were really little, they used to sit and stare at those balloons, and when no one was looking, they'd like to pick them to see if they released them, they would float away to the sky. You could still see a little torn bit where William had tried to peel one off the wall when he was 3, and every time they went into that room, the first thing they did is head straight towards that balloon and touch it, remembering and such. They asked their dad about it once, and he thought it was nostalgia. It's because of that hot air balloon and the nostalgia that William and Alex first met the Doctor.
It was 3 days before Christmas, and they'd spent most of the day playing in the spare room and staring straight at that torn yellow balloon on the wall, kneeling beside it, because they're bigger now, and touching it. But this time they did something different. They didn't really know why. Their dad was called up to say he wanted to talk to them about school, and sometimes you don't want to talk about school. Maybe it was because they were thinking about being 3 and how much smaller the balloons look now. But actually, it was probably because Mary Phillips had made up a song about their hair, and they were feeling a bit cross, and their eyes were all stingy and blurry the way they get when you know you're going to cry if you don't really concentrate. Anyway, William and Alex's fingers were resting right on the torn bit, and they was thinking about the song and frizziness and such, and suddenly it was like they just didn't care. And they started to tear the paper a little bit more, just a tiny bit at first. They just sort of tugged it to see what would happen, but they kept going. And you know, sometimes it's like you're in a dream, and you're doing something, but it doesn't feel like you're doing it, more like you're just watching. Well, they went right on and peeled the whole balloon off the wall, a whole streak of wallpaper, and they just ripped it off. Naughty, naughty. And then, oh my goodness me, they just stared. And here is what was written under the wallpaper. Help me, Alex. Help me, William.
Christmas Eve 1985? Sorry, darling, I don't really remember.
Their dad was frowning at them from across the dinner table, trying to think.
Can you really try, please?
William said.
It's ever so important,
Alex added.
Maybe you had guests or friends staying or something. Maybe in the spare room.
Well, we always had Christmas parties before you were born.
You still have Christmas parties.
You could check in the shed.
Why would you have parties in a shed?
For photographs. If we had a party, we always had photographs. I always keep photographs. I'll have a look around.
Thanks, Dad.
What does it matter, though? Why so interested?
They nearly told him, but they knew he'd only laugh. Because really, if you think about it, there was only one explanation. Coincidence. There must have been another Alex and William in the family they'd never heard about. And whoever had written that on the wall 20 years ago, they hadn't met Alex and William. But, well, a different Alex and William. They meant that mysterious other duo from 20 years ago. They wondered what they were like. They wondered where the duo were now. and wondered most of all why they'd been kept a dark secret all these many years. Perhaps they'd been horribly murdered for deadly reasons, with a capital D and a capital R. As they were about to go to bed, they looked hard at their dad, the way they did when they were warning adults not to lie to them. And Alex asked,
There was another couple of boys called Alex and William, weren't there, Dad? We're not the first, are we?
Their dad looked at them really oddly for a moment. They half expected him to stagger back against the mantelpiece, all pale and clutching at his bosom, and ask in quivery tones how I had uncovered the family secret and have terrible rending sobs. But no. He just laughed and said,
No, of course not. 1 Alex and 1 William is quite enough. Now off to bed with you.
They laid in their beds, but they couldn't sleep. There had to be another pair of brothers. There just had to be. Otherwise, someone from 20 years ago was trying to talk to them from under the wallpaper, and that was just stupid. When their dad came in to kiss them goodnight, they always pretended to be asleep, but they never were. They heard him put something on their bedside table. As soon as they heard the bedroom door close, the pair of boys jumped and switched the light on. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was their dad's dark confession. The truth about the other William and Alex and their dreadful fate. Sitting on the bedside table was a box. They gasped horrendously. They wondered how big a box would have to be to contain human remains. Their eyes narrowed shrewdly, and also bravely, and looked at the label on the lid. Though they did think labelling murdered human remains would be a bit of an obvious mistake, even for their dad. The label said, Photographs 1985. The Christmas party ones were right at the bottom, and took them ages to find. They were just the usual kind, lots of people grinning and drinking, and wearing paper hats. Their mum and dad looking all shiny and thin. And they saw it. Their eyebrows raised in perplexity again, slightly higher this time, because standing right in the middle of one of the photographs was a man with a leather jacket and enormous ears. He was in the middle of a line of grown-ups laughing and dancing, but he was looking right at the camera and holding up a piece of paper like a sign. And on the sign it said, Help me, Alex and William. They gasped even more in amazement. There was another Alex and there was another William, and obviously they were taking a photograph. And probably they were a bit deaf, and you had to talk to them with paper signs, because hearing aids hadn't been invented yet. And then they looked at the next photograph, and that's when everything changed. Suddenly it was like the school bell was ringing in their ears, and you could feel their hearts thudding in their chests, so hard you could probably have seen the buttons bouncing on their pyjamas. There was the man again, at the back of the photograph, holding up another piece of paper. And this one said, Look under the wallpaper again. As they reached for the wallpaper again, their hands were shaking away like when you tried to do your homework on the school bus. The next bit of writing was much longer, and this is what it said. This isn't a dream. And by the way, you should never try to do your homework on a school bus. I'm going to prove this is real. Think of a number, any number at all, and then get dressed, find a torch, and see what's carved in the bark of the furthest tree in the garden. When people think of a number, they always think of 10 or 7 or something. They never think of a really big stupid one. So they did. They thought of a big stupid one. Then they halved it. Then they added their ages. Then they added 4, just because they felt like it. And then a few minutes later, they were standing in the garden, shivering, staring at the furthest tree. And there it was, carved like it had been there forever. No one ever thinks of the number 73, except William and Alex, and the man who had carved the furthest tree in their dad's garden 20 years ago. They sat on their beds for ages, just shaking and wondering what to do now. But it was obvious, really. They tore off the next strip of wallpaper. This time it just said, Top shelf in the living room, right at the back. The top shelf was where their dad kept all his videos. He hardly ever watched television, never mind videos, so they're all a bit dusty. And right at the back, jammed halfway down at the gap at the back of the shelf, was a tape that looked like it had been there for a long time. And stuck on it, a post-it. It said, FAO, William and Alex. They slipped it into the VCR and kept the television volume really low, so as not to wake their mum and dad. And there, grinning like a loon from the television, was the man from the photographs. He was sitting in their spare room. Only the walls were bare, and there was a pair of ladders in the middle of the room, like someone was decorating. They could hear party music coming from somewhere downstairs, and they wondered if it was the party in 1985.
Well, come on, lads, you got to have questions, I would.
They frowned. Not a lot of point in asking questions when the man you're asking can't hear them.
Who says they can't hear you?
They stared. They thought they probably gasped. Their eyebrows were practically bursting out the top of their heads. It was ridiculous. It was impossible. They hadn't even said that out loud.
No, you didn't. You just thought that. Oh, and yeah, you did gasp.
Who are you?
That's more like it. Now we're cooking. I'm the Doctor. I'm a time traveller and I'm stuck in 1985 and I need you to help me.
They had so many questions racing round their heads, they didn't know which one to pick.
How did you get stuck?
Parked my time machine in your dad's shed. Was just locking up and, well, it burped.
Burped?
Yeah, burped. Shot forward 20 years. I hate it when that happens.
They looked out the window to where their dad's shed stood at the end of the garden, and they noticed there was something glowing at the windows. Suddenly, they were just a little bit afraid.
So, it's here then?
Exactly. Nip out to your dad's shed, you'll find a big blue box. Key still in the door. Could just stick around for 20 years and pick it up myself, but I don't want it falling into the wrong hands. And I know you're not the wrong hands, lads, so I want you to fly it back to me.
They swallowed hard. This was totally freaky.
You've got another question, I think.
You're just on videotape. How can you hear us?
Actually, I can't. Can't hear a thing. I just happen to know everything you and me are going to say in this whole conversation.
How?
Because Mary Phillips made up a song about your hair.
They could hardly breathe for all the gasping.
And you pushed her, didn't you, William? And then you did too, didn't you, Alex? And then you got a punishment.
Their faces were burning. How did he know all this? They hadn't even told their mum and dad.
You got Christmas homework, an essay about what you did over the Christmas holidays, and I've got a copy.
And this is the freakiest part of all, because he held a copy of the actual essay William and Alex hadn't even started writing yet.
I know everything you're going to ask when you see this tape, because I've read the essay you wrote about it. That's how I know what to write on the wall. You'll have to show me exactly where. By the way, that's how I knew what number you were thinking of.
But how did you get a new copy of our Christmas homework? We haven't even written it yet.
Told you, I'm a time traveller. I got it in the future, from a couple of secret agents on a balcony in Istanbul. Amazing blokes. I just had a sword fight on the roof with 2 Centaurans, and they saved me from the second one. Then they gave me your Christmas homework and told me to keep it on me at all times, because I need it one day.
They were right.
A pair of secret agents in the future was going to have a copy of their Christmas homework. Talk about pressure.
Okay, that's just about time up. Gonna need you to go to the time machine and fly it here.
We can't fly a time machine. We can barely drive Dad's car.
Lads, I absolutely know you can do this. And do you know how?
How?
Because I've read to the end of the story. Fantastic. Also, you hear that noise?
Coming from the television, a terrible wheezing and groaning.
What's that?
That's you!
Behind the man, a huge blue box just appeared out of thin air. The boys stared at it. There were words over the door and Alex squinted closer to read them. Alex realised that he should have known. He looked like a policeman.
That's your time machine?
Yep. Do you like it?
But who flew it there?
You did.
The doors on the big blue box were opening. And then the most amazing thing ever. The boys stepped out of the box. Alex, William and Alex. Another Alex and William stepped out of the time machine and waved at the camera.
Hello, Alex and William 2 hours ago. It's great in there. You're gonna love it. Bigger on the inside.
See? Told you could fly a time machine.
Yeah, it's easy.
It homes in on his watch anyway. You just have to press the reset button next to the phone.
Who told you that?
The younger William asked. The man looked a little cross about that.
Yeah, well, before you set off any more time paradoxes, Alex, William, go and do your homework.
But listen, it's gonna be great!
Said the other William. And so they finished their essay. Took them until nearly 2 o'clock in the morning, and they went to fetch the shed key from the kitchen drawer, setting off across the garden on a trip of a lifetime. A big, amazing adventure. And not their last one either, oh no. Just the first of lots and lots for the rest of their lives, probably. Suddenly, they didn't care what their dad was going to say about the torn wallpaper, or what Mary Phillips thought about their hair. They'll go back to school after the holidays and just be nice to her. And she can make up all the songs she wants. They'll join in if it makes her happy. You see, they knew the best thing in the world. They know what's coming. They asked the man one more question before the end of the tape. They asked how a pair of handsome secret agents in the future could have a copy of their Christmas homework.
Can't you guess? Their names were Alex and William.
The big blue box is waiting in the shed at the end of their garden. and they've just finished their homework.